Good morning, people. How are you doing? Today is November the 3rd, 2023. It is about 9 o'clock in the morning on a nice, clear, sunny Tampa day. Friday, by the way. Happy Friday to you all. Today's video is going to be a little... we're just going to kind of skim over a couple of the bigger news stories out there. News stories that don't get a whole lot of attention. So we'll start off with Gaza, of course. We have 13 Democratic senators calling for a short-term cessation of hostilities. Short-term. Hey, Israel, please, Zionists, rabid Likudniks, would you mind not bombing women and children and innocent people for maybe a couple days to make things look better for us and Joe Biden with the upcoming election? Do you mind not killing and slaughtering innocent people, punishing the civilian population for what Hamas did? Do you mind not doing that? Do you mind kind of pulling back on your rabid fucking desire to steal more land for a couple of days so we can get some fucking emergency stuff into the fucking Gaza? Would that be okay with you, please? 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 No? Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to bother you. Please, go right ahead with your bombing. Go ahead and kill more civilians. It's okay. Don't take away my money. Group of 13 Democratic senators is calling for a short-term cessation of hostilities in Gaza. The failure to adequately protect non-combatant civilians risks dramatic escalation of the conflict in the region and imposes severe damage on prospects for peaceful coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. A statement released on Thursday by senators including Ed Markey, Mark Warner, Chris Murphy, reads, the failure to adequately protect non-combatant civilians is fucking evil. Now, it risks dramatic escalation in the region. You're going to kick off another fucking war. A bigger war in the region because you won't stop bombing babies in Gaza. Because, as I described the other day, if you did, Israelis would start investigating who actually killed all those civilians on October the 7th. When they find tank shells and remnants of tank shells and Hellfire missiles in the apartment complexes, in the fucking homes of all those dead Israelis that they said were killed by Palestinians, someone's going to put two and two together and realize that Palestinians don't have tanks and or Hellfire missiles. So, they can't stop bombing. You can ask politely all you want. Based on the consensus of opinion of U.S. and international aid officials, it is nearly impossible to deliver sufficient humanitarian aid to protect civilian life under current conditions. Let me translate that for you into human speak. There's already been 60 international aid workers killed by Israel. 60. Just trying to save women, children, people, innocent people who had nothing to do with what happened on October the 7th. And they certainly had nothing to do with launching tank shells and Hellfire missiles into the homes of Israeli civilians. The group calling for a short-term cessation of hostilities also includes Who Gives a Fuck. President Biden said on Wednesday he thinks a pause is needed in the fighting between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. A pause. And this, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, is something that Secretary Blinken mentioned when he went and sat down with Bibi Netanyahu just yesterday. But Bibi's not going to do it. Everyone knows Bibi's not going to do it. Because of what's at stake. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. There is a contingent of folks who are deeply concerned. Hi, good morning, folks. Who are deeply concerned about what's going to happen in 2026 when this infrastructure bill, specifically, it's not an amendment. It's a chapter of 24/220, or 24/220 is implemented. That is, it's known as a kill switch clause in this infrastructure bill, which is deeply concerning to a lot of people. Bill Burr mentioned it in Congress, and of course, ever since then, it's been kind of quiet, and people haven't really talked about it since in January and maybe February of 2022. But it was passed, the infrastructure bill was written, it was a big infrastructure bill, and, in 2021, December, gave a little bit of money to the people to shut them up while they pushed this fucking massive 6 million page fucking infrastructure bill with all this money for big business. That kept them rolling. At least the preferred businesses, the preferred companies rolling during the lockdowns and all that shit of the COVID-19 days. Inside this infrastructure bill, this massive thing, 1.9 trillion, 1.7 trillion, something like that, was this little fucking section, 24/220. And it was there, and it was in there when it was signed into law. It's basically on the front, on the face of it, it's there to keep drunk drivers from killing 10,000 people a year. Oh my God, drunk drivers. I know everybody always has to virtue signal screeching about the drunk drivers. My God, how could you drunk drive? Everyone's got a virtue signal about the drunk drivers. There are bigger problems facing the world today, and I know it's not fucking pleasant, and I know it happens, but you know who doesn't get pulled over for drunk driving? Doctors, politicians, lawyers, wealthy people, CEOs. Drunk driving is a crime that's committed remarkably, it's only committed by people who are working middle class, lower class, and the poor. They're the only ones who get pulled over for drunk driving, charged with drunk driving. If you were a judge, CEO, COO, a doctor, and I know this for a fact because I've spoken to them and asked them. They told us. They told me. Yeah, if you got some belligerent asshole, yelling and screaming or lying there passed out in the middle of a fucking intersection with a bag of cocaine sitting on his fucking head, drunk as shit, yeah, they'll escort him back to the back of the car and toss him in the car and arrest him. But if it's just, a couple 7 martinis at the club on the way home from work, chances are really not, and they're driving a fucking $130,000 vehicle, and when they pull up the license plate, they see Dr. So-and-so. Unless they're really, really dangerous or passed out or wrapped around a tree, or they're driving along and they've got some fucking body hanging off of the fucking front of the hood of the car and they don't even know it yet. Unless it's really gratuitous, gratuitous, is that the word? Whatever. Unless it's really bad, they're not going to pull them over. Because that's how our glorious system works, boys and girls. So they claim that the whole thing is about stop the drunk drivers. What they want is by 2026, it mandated for every new fucking vehicle that there be what's called a kill switch enacted in the vehicle. Now, some people said early on that it would be expanded upon so that somebody outside the vehicle could turn your car off. And that's probably where it's going to be. Now, the detail of this one little fucking area in the bill is extremely ambiguous. In fact, they say you have 3 years, which comes up, in 2 months. You have 3 years to put together the specifics of this one little tiny section of this infrastructure bill. What it specified was they wanted 2 things. They put 2 things in the bill. One was a way in which to tell, monitor, assess, ascertain in real time inside the vehicle whether or not the driver was displaying any kind of questionable behavior. And the second thing was to determine, ascertain, figure out inside the vehicle what the blood alcohol content was. What does that mean? Does that mean you gotta have a little box of straws and there's a thing on your fucking dashboard, you gotta stick it in there and blow on it like a goddamn fucking AA guy? Every time you want to drive your car, every 15 minutes you got on your fucking 2006 $119,000 Kia, which is what they're gonna cost by 2006. That's the baseline fucking one. At 9% APR. Is that what that means? How would they ascertain that? But the really scary part is the first part. Well, that's scary enough. But the really scary part is the first part. And that would be what they are calling for, what they're looking for, what we assume, many writers assume it's going to entail is there's going to be a system in which it looks at your eyes. It can tell what your eyes are doing, if your eyes are all twitchy or if your eyes are dilated, which means there's going to be a camera staring right in your fucking face. And a surveillance system inside the vehicle monitoring what you're talking about, if you're slurring your words. And of course, all those lovely little cameras on the side of the car, in the front of the car, in the back of the car, on the top of the car, on the bottom of the car, inside the fucking wheels driving around. And inside the cars, looking at you, looking at the passengers, looking at what's in your passengers' pockets, what's in your passenger's fucking lap, what's in your trunk. All those wonderful surveillance systems that they use to then send all that information up to the glorious cloud. The backup camera. When this shit came out, how many years ago was it with fucking GM and their fucking OnStar shit? I said, God damn. This is the worst possible thing in terms of your privacy. People are, oh, I love it. I love it. It tells me exactly where to go, as if you can't read a fucking map. People, I told you. All of these cameras, backup cameras. Let me show you what the backup cameras save you. Let me show you what the backup cameras save you. Here I am driving a car. And I'm getting ready to leave my parking lot out front. Here's what I got to do. God damn. It's a good thing I got that backup camera. So now this is what I got to do. It's good. It's got sensors and it beeps if someone's coming down the road. How many fucking accidents happen just backing up? I used to shop at Walmart and park at Walmart, so I know there's probably a lot. But still, I don't think I'm 57 now. I was driving since I was 16. I never had an accident backing up, ever, never, ever. Never, ever, ever, ever had an accident backing up. Was never involved in an accident backing up. Was never involved in someone backing out of a parking lot and hit me. I don't think I'm the one person. So what's that camera actually doing back there? What's that series of cameras doing back there? Protecting you? Protecting the insurance company? Or is it constantly passively? That's what they say. It's a passive system. These are passive systems. That sounds so unintrusive. It's a passive system. No, it's not. It's an aggressive system. By passive, that means it's constantly fucking on. It's constantly monitoring you, watching you, staring at you, listening to what you say, watching how you drive, knowing where you go, and it's sending it up to the fucking cloud. All of it. There was a guy who was streaming, and the guy who was streaming filmed a stream and then played that video as if he was actually streaming. And he said, oh, my computer, something's wrong with my computer. I can stream, but I can't react to your fucking comments. Oh, well, I'll just stream, and I'll just make comments as I go. He had recorded it. It wasn't live. He did that so he could go kill his girlfriend. Okay? And when the cops asked him, where were you? He said, oh, I was live streaming. But I couldn't interact live with the people. But I was live streaming. That proves where I was. He thought he was a genius. Turns out they took surveillance footage from his apartment building and her apartment building and maybe one or two fucking stoplight cams, which are also passive, by the way. But then they also took video from a whole bunch of drivers who were in front of or behind his car as he left his house while he was live streaming at home. As he left his house, drove over to his girlfriend's apartment, killed his girlfriend, came back, put on the same clothes, said, I'm taking a break on the thing. And as soon as he took a break on the thing, he turned the video off and finished the live stream. Oh, look, my computer's working again. Total informational awareness in the glorious new world order that we live in. That's what they want. Total informational awareness. They want to know everything about you, everything you're doing. Either from your car snitching on you to your neighbor's car snitching on you to some stranger's car driving down the road snitching on you. I got all these cameras. I'm so proud. I got a Wi-Fi in my car. You're a goddamn moron. You're a goddamn moron. Anyway, so what they want is this new system to be able to shut your computer, your car off if you're doing bad things. Not if you're a doctor doing bad things, or a CEO doing bad things, or a judge doing bad things, or a well-placed lawyer doing bad things, or if you're little people doing bad things, they want to be able to shut your car off. Now, what's the problem with that, Scott? Yeah, the thing catches him. He's drunk. He blows a 0.09. Holy fuck! Shut him down and arrest him. The system will then report to the police, the popo, that you tried to fucking drive a car. And even if they come and knock on your door while you're in the apartment because your car won't work, they'll still give you a DUI. Why? Because they need the money infused into the court system, and because the insurance companies love that shit, because then they can jack up your insurance even more. Insurance prices in Florida just went up. The insurance prices in Florida have skyrocketed like 25% in the last 6 months. They want more money. Why is that? You say, well, Scott, cars cost more money, and so repairs cost more money. Most people don't wreck their cars. They're like, socialism is bad. Communism is bad. Having to give up. If you make money to give it to care for somebody else, what's the insurance racket do? Tell me what the insurance racket does. how that's different than what people bitch about when it comes to evil socialism. How is that different? You are paying money for a service that you might need, provided that they maybe will give you that service. Maybe they'll find some reason not to. But basically, you're paying money to cover other people's fucking expenses. That's the same fucking thing as, oh my God, the socialism. They want to take some taxes and pay for somebody else's health care. Fuck you. In reality, the insurance racket is the exact same thing. The only difference is, this is why you love it so much, because some fucking CEO and some fucking stockholders make money off of it. And that's the only difference. That really is the only difference. So, the insurance companies, do you know that initially, when the DUI, they did all that stuff back in the 80s and 90s. They jumped up the fucking DUI laws. And they said, let's do a study and see just how intoxicated somebody has to be to make it harder, make it worse for them. They shouldn't be driving. And they did a bunch of studies. And the insurance companies did it, and the government did it. And they all came to a number. And that blood alcohol content number was 1.3. Some came to 1.5. 1.3. We'll go with 1.3. How did it get down to 0.08? And in some cases, you'll see states advertising, one drink is too much. Meaning they'll try to prosecute you for 0. Not 1 point. It was 0.15, then 0.13. Now it's 0.08. Big difference. You got a 2% blood alcohol content. You did. So that was the case back. That was a law back then. Who made that? Who lobbied Congress and state law to make it lower and lower and lower and lower? The insurance companies. Why? Because they wanted to jack up rates. It's money. It's money. But insurance companies doing it are so much better than the damn socialist government. Jesus. So, here's the deal, folks. You say, Scott, if this prevents one death, it's worth it. It's worth it to sacrifice everybody's fucking freedom of the ability to have privacy in their lives. To prevent one death, that's 330 million people. To prevent the 10,000 deaths a year, how many people die in pool accidents every year? And not everybody has a pool. My point is, curbing DUI deaths is an important fucking effort, an important fucking task. However, sacrificing everybody else's freedom to privacy, right to privacy, is not a price worth paying. The idea behind this is, if it turns out in January when the details of this thing come out, 24/220, people are concerned, and rightly so, that it will include a lot of things that have nothing to do with DUIs. It will include things like police officers being able to turn off someone's car remotely if they're involved in a car chase. And you say, Scott, that's good. See, these are all good things, Scott. Well, now we have to extrapolate a little bit. First of all, are most fucking criminals trying to avoid cops driving brand new 2026 vehicles? No. So why? What do they want really from this? I'll tell you what they want. it will be, once that is accepted, because they do these things through incrementalism, once that is accepted, that you can turn off someone's car because you think maybe the algorithm thinks maybe that someone's drinking. Then once you can turn off someone's vehicle because they're in a car chase or they did something wrong or they beat their wife and now they're trying to flee custody, and so turn off his car. All these things are all well and good. However, then you get into the gray area. What if somebody's late on their insurance payments? Before, they just turned off their insurance, and of course, if they got pulled over, they would be in trouble because the state works for the insurance companies, has revoked their license. Okay, but they got to get pulled over. They got to do something wrong to get pulled over in order for that to happen, to come to the attention of the police, the popo. Now, turn off your car. If this thing goes through, turn off your car for big business. Turn that shit off. You better not get, I don't care how bad it gets. I don't care how expensive shit gets. I don't care how much they want for your fucking mortgage, because you're not going to own anything for your rent or your lease on your car, because you're not going to own anything but your lease payment on your car. I don't care how expensive food gets. I don't care how expensive your school note payments get. I don't care how expensive anything else gets and whether your kids got sick this month or not. It doesn't matter. You're not going to slow down on their fucking insurance money payments. We'll turn your shit right the fuck off. And they will. They'll also, because of global warming, they'll be able to say, you know what, because they're monitoring every fucking mile that you drive, right? They'll say, you know what, you get 120 miles per week because you have to go a certain distance to school, to work, to school, to wherever you're going. Okay, that's legitimate. So we'll give you those miles, there and back, nothing else. And then enough, per month to go to the doctor once and go to the fucking, grocery store 4 times. And then over that, maybe we'll give you 20 free miles a month because global warming. You go beyond that, you go over that fucking allotted number of fucking miles, they'll turn you off. That's another place that goes. And everyone's going to have to say, well, Scott, it is global warming. You're being fucking rude. You're being greedy. You want to drive your kids to the fucking park. You see how incrementalism works? Then, ultimately, because they're monitoring your eyes and your face and your passengers and what you got in your hands, and maybe you got a pamphlet in your hand. Maybe you're trying to hand out the pamphlets because you don't want to go online because you'll get you'll get flagged and all your constitutional rights will be tossed out the window. You got a pamphlet in your hand. It's reading the fucking pamphlet, sending it up there, and the pamphlet's talking about, we need to fucking protest. Or, even worse, we need to fucking unionize. Oh no. Boop, turn that fucking car off. And it all started with OnStar. And it all started with people like myself saying, hey, there's a problem here. Fuck you, Luddite. There you go. That's called incrementalism, boys and girls. I'm going to keep an eye on this thing. Right now, we don't know exactly how bad this thing is going to be, but we know how bad it's going to be because we know what they want. We know what they want. And in the end, all of this shit is going to end up putting us in this. I mean, it'll be worse than Orwell could, even in his worst fevered nightmares imagined. I'll post some links on these things. There's some people questioning it. Here's one talking about the infrastructure bill and the kill switch. Of course, that was 2 years ago. And here's another one talking about the kill switch and all this shit. This is even Snopes, and even Snopes says it's a mixture of true and false. Is there a kill switch? Is there a problem with the surveillance system and the new vehicles to track drivers? Yeah. Even Snopes had to say, well, it's a mixture of true and false, and we know what Snopes is. But if you really like, to get really deep into it, there's section 24220. They are the numbers I cited to you. See, there's here's the concentration. The crashes that resulted in those fatalities involved a driver with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.15 or higher. 0.15 or higher. That's where it started, boys and girls. Back when they first did the goddamn studies. They said you're impaired to the point where you shouldn't be driving if your blood alcohol content is 0.15. I didn't lie. I didn't make that up. And here, in 2019, of all the people with the fatalities involved in a car crash, the 10,142 of them in 2019, all of them were 0.15 or higher. But they'll still give working people, working poor people, a DUI and jack up your fucking rates if it's 0.08. That's almost half. I guess they got the numbers right back in the 80s and 90s when they fucking did the original fucking studies, right? According to this, they did. So there you go. Check that out. I'll post links to those back there. Somebody sent me... somebody sent me 2 notifications on different stories, and I want to thank them for that. I can't dox him, but I'll thank him. One of them is this guy. Feds on parade, boys and girls. That's right. I talked about these dudes back in September. Where are they? The Blood Tribe. Feds on parade. Remember him? I talked about him. Him and his one buddy. He's all tatted up, buddy. His old head is all tatted up. I told you they were, he's a former Marine, which means he's a fucking Fed. And he was tasked as a former Marine to infiltrate. There was somebody, famous dude who did that, writer who did that. He was really well known. I forget his fucking name. He was former Marine. And he went into the fucking neo-Nazi movement. And they fucking sussed him out. And they figured out who he was. So what they did with this dude was, they just made him his own fucking... They made him in charge of his own fake fucking Fed tribe of neo-Nazis. And they surrounded him with a whole bunch of Feds to protect him. He's got one dude who doesn't wear a fucking mask because they're all Feds. They don't want you to know they're all Feds. So they all wear masks and sunglasses. He has one dude who doesn't wear masks and sunglasses. And he's a fucking ex-meth head who was busted by the Feds, and now he's doing his... This is what he does to pay back society. Pretends to be a fucking neo-Nazi and his right-hand man. I covered these guys back in September. Somebody sent me an interesting fucking story. Do you see that right there? That's Lewiston. That's where the fucking shooting took place. And this story, out of Maine, is 10 months ago. His name is Christopher Polhaus. And by the way, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, he just sold his house, and he's moving out of Maine. But let's have a listen to what was said 10 months ago about this dude in Lewiston, Maine.
24 members of a neo-Nazi organization marched through Lewiston, and with them, a national extremist influencer who is now living in Maine. Good evening, I'm Pat Callahan.
And I'm Amanda Hill. That neo-Nazi group calls itself NSC 131, and it has made itself known not only in Maine, but in New Hampshire and in Boston. The Anti-Defamation League labels them as a group fighting against the extinction of the white race.
News Center Maine's Jack Mullen is here now with more on the group
There
and
he
the
is.
influencer who now calls Maine home. Jack?
Pat and Amanda, his name is Christopher Polhouse. He is a Marine Corps veteran and has a significant following on encrypted social media messaging apps like Telegram. And through Vice News, we're learning that Polhouse is
Through Telegram. All you guys who contacted me and said, hey, Scott, why don't you just get off of this shit? We'll get on Telegram. Telegram's fucking the feds, man. Who do you think's fucking monitoring that shit?
not only living here in Maine, but his goal is to turn Maine into a white ethno-state. I spoke with Vice News and with community leaders in Lewiston to find out what happens next.
And there they are. There they are. Now remember, they changed their outfits. The Blood Tribe. They changed their outfits. They were red and black. But back in the day, remember I told you all these fucking feds, they wore the tan goddamn slack khakis and the blue fucking jackets or blue fucking shirts. You know why? Do you know why? Because that's what the fucking FBI trainees have to wear. And they didn't want to put the money into fucking getting them all new outfits and fucking nifty new fucking, hoods and glasses and gloves. Nope. So they just sent them out there wearing the same fucking shit that they wear at the goddamn FBI training academy. I swear to God. That's who these guys are. These guys are fucking FBI trainees.
Hide behind a mask? Because I knew what I was doing is shameful.
This was the scene at Kennedy Park in Lewiston this October.
I had to hide behind the mask because I knew what I was doing was shameful. No, they hide behind the mask because they don't want you to fucking figure out with facial recognition software. That dude's actually currently in the FBI training academy.
Where National Social Club 131 marched and held signs targeting Somalian people who live there, leaving an impression and questions in the community.
It's very concerning to see this display of hatred.
But this wasn't the first time this group has turned out. They protested a
Feds on parade.
drag show last year in Portsmouth. And
Oh
according
my God,
to
they're
Vice News
homophobic.
extremism reporter Ben McCoo,
they're trying to intimidate people who stand for a fair and just and equal society where everyone is welcome. And I think that that's something that they want to prevent. It's intimidating the LGBTQ community, the people of color of Maine and of New England. And as far as I know, the group, it's an underground network that's active.
McCoo traveled to Maine this year after finding out neo-Nazi and national extreme...
We need a shot of him doing something like, redneck. What could he be doing? He could be shooting something. Well, let's not do that. Let's not go that far. What else does redneck do? Oh, let's get a Walmart fucking fishing ride on the way and find some water. He's like in a fucking pond.
influencer Christopher Polhouse.
Oh, there he goes. He's on a lake.
With his
There you
mission
go.
to
I'm
turn
sorry, he's not in
Maine
a
into
pond.
a white ethno-state.
So they thought, oh, this would be the perfect location to,
He's
prepare
just a
for
fisherman.
anything that could potentially happen in terms of the end of the Republic, or also
so
just
stupid.
a place that they could be among only white people.
Here, Vice News speaks with
Ah,
Polhouse,
yeah,
who
there he
is a
goes.
Marine Corps
Open your shirt up wide enough so you can see your stupid fucking... That was fine. The dude that ended up being... he actually organized the Right something, the Charlottesville thing. And he was the State Department employee. Remember him? I covered that guy a while ago. Him and his wife, and they ran... and they took the right something, whatever that fucking, it wasn't right sector, it was something right. It was their fucking Charlottesville fucking rally thing. And they organized it. They met with this dude who was a State Department guy running a neo-Nazi group online. And he had a party at his house in suburban fucking D.C. This guy was State Department, was current State Department. They went through a lot of shit. The Southern Poverty Law Center exposed who he was, and he ended up getting fired. But it took like 9 months. And the reason was because he wasn't doing this on his own. He was doing this as part of his fucking State Department job. But turns out they had a big party and took pictures in which the guy who was the right, whatever the fuck it is, whatever that march was that he was there, he was at their home, and they took pictures, and they had cookies, swastika cookies, and they served swastika cookies to him, and they made sure to, take pictures of the swastika cookies. That's what that thing hanging on his fucking neck looks like, a swastika cookie from that fucking party.
Veteran.
It's not about knowing people, understanding them, having...
This is why you very rarely see this dumbass talk. Maybe he was a good fucking Marine. Maybe he served his country well, but he's not a goddamn actor. Okay? He's not, and he's not good at it. So have a listen to this shit.
Empathy for them. It's literally power. Where does the Aryan get to cash out?
Where?
We spilled a lot of it, dude.
Spilled a lot of what, dude? He's just out of his fucking mind.
For 100 years, man, a whole lot, dude.
Yeah, he's believable. Looking down at the ground, looking up over here. He really believes exactly what he's fucking saying.
Pohlhaus is living in Maine, as Vice News identified him attending that march in Lewiston by NSC 131.
NSC, National Security Council? Is that NSC, National Security Council? Jesus. So yeah, he was in Lewiston, and he's moving now. He was still in Lewiston. I wonder if any of his buddies, any of his fucking buddies, or any people that they knew had anything to do with what happened in Lewiston. Oh, this week, the shooting that took place in Lewiston. I don't know. It's a very, very interesting question. But he's leaving now. Out of the blue, dude has decided to jump ship and take off. He says his Mainers have made it too dangerous to keep property 2 days ago. Maine drives out Blood Tribe Nazi encampment 1 day ago. So after the shooting in Lewiston, Christopher Pohlhaus is selling the land. I wonder if this guy had anything to do, or any of his people had anything to do with that. Now, let's go back. So Gaza. Lots of stuff going on with Gaza. It looks like Bibi Netanyahu is in deep, deep shit. They're going to fucking start doing investigations, and they already started doing investigations and finding out that a lot of these fucking civilians, 112 of them in one kibbutz, weren't killed by the Palestinians. Instead, they were killed by IDF soldiers under this Hannibal directive, which, by the way, has nothing to do with being able to kill civilians. But these are all facts, and more is coming out as they bomb more civilians in Gaza. Okay? Everyone's saying this is fucked up. And all of these fucking stories, isn't it odd that they came out with a bullshit story about slaughtering and burning kids and when in fact it wasn't them that did it. It wasn't the Palestinians that did it. It was the IDF did it. And they were covering for the fact that they did it. A big trope that they put out there was, for some reason, they were all carrying fucking grenades, and they would open a door in an Israeli fucking residence and throw a grenade in and close the door, and boom! For some odd fucking reason. Turns out that didn't happen. What did happen was the IDF sent a tank shell round through a fucking window in an Israeli home and killed everybody. And they had to explain why they've got blown up houses when the Palestinians are seen running around with AK-47s. And so that lie, that propaganda was put out there. And then, of course, you have the story of Honor. Honor was a young man who was in a bunker. Now, the bunker might be the very same bunker that the general in the bunker called in an airstrike on his position. But the bunker that Honor was in, according to the friend of the mother who talked to the IDF person who explained how her son died, the mother said she was told by the IDF person that Honor died honorably as a hero. They threw 8 grenades in. He grabbed them and threw them out because the Palestinian forgot to close the door part. And the 9th one came in and he grabbed it, and the 10th one came in and it blew up and he was killed. But he still had that grenade in his hand when they found him, in spite of the fact that modern day grenades, you pick them up, it doesn't matter if you're holding them, they still blow up. The old days, back in the Vietnam days, they had a little lever on them. They don't have those little levers on them anymore. So that was bullshit. What happened there was some mother contacted someone's mother, and they told her that story rather than telling her son was killed by an IDF tank shell that was fired into the fucking bunker because of the Hannibal directive. So they lied to their own people. They didn't just kill their own people, they lied to their own people. Repeatedly. How many of the 1,400 were killed by IDF? Well, we know 112 were killed at the kibbutz by the IDF. That's not a question, that's a fact. That's even been reported by Haaretz, which is a leading newspaper, periodical in Israel. 112 of the 1,400. And we'll just start the fucking countdown from there. We know that in that one bunker where the fucking general or somebody who was in charge called in a fucking airstrike on his own position because Palestinians armed with fucking AK-47s had them surrounded and killed a bunch of IDF guys who were shooting back at them. So however many were killed in that bunker, and it might have even been the bunker Honor was in, were killed by the IDF, not by the Palestinians. So subtract those from the 1,400 minus the 112 minus the bunker, and then it keeps going down from there. That's what we are up against. That kind of propaganda and those lies. But thank goodness we have truth tellers. Thank goodness we have people out there telling the truth about what happened, and they stand with freedom. They stand with the truth. They stand with honesty. Like this guy.
I don't know why I was born, but there is something about the state of Israel that connects deeply to me. To have the privilege to stand with the Jew is a tremendous honor, spiritually. So I want to read a letter that I wrote that I am sending to the state of Israel. To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the honorable officials at the state of Israel. In this moment, I have chosen to ask you for citizenship in the state of Israel. I have nothing to offer but my voice of support. And some might say that my support might be more valuable as an independent voice. Perhaps they're correct. But my request for citizenship is not about words, it is about deeds. Why, one might wonder, would I want to embrace a heritage and identity that is so ruthlessly hunted down again and again? Yet it is precisely during such moments that we must choose to stand. I anticipate no privileges or exemption from the state of Israel. I instead yearn to align myself with those willing to rise, to fight, and sacrifice for the fundamental right to live.
I expect nothing in return. How much are they paying? $1,000 a video? They're paying $1,000 a video. Hasbro paying $1,000 a video. The propaganda arm of the Israeli fucking government paying $1,000 a video for influencers. Did he get $1,000 for this 5-minute fucking video? This has been cut down to 1 minute and 39 seconds. Did he get paid $1,000 for a 5-minute fucking... I love Israel! And all you want to do is live. You don't want to bother anybody else, but live. Except they're currently trying to wipe out all the Palestinians off of Gaza so they can steal the land. And you guys are constantly being killed and attacked. On October 7th, it seems like, the IDF was attacked by the fucking Palestinians because the IDF had been holding them in a goddamn world's largest prison. But the people of Israel, who attacked them? Oh, that's right. The same people this bloated piece of shit sucking up to. That's who.
Is this not what both Israel and America embody? In closing, my desire for dual citizenship.
Is this not what both Israel and the United States embody? Well, now that's an interesting fucking statement. Colonialism, occupation, brutal, vicious regime change, which is what's happening in Gaza. They got Hamas. Has to go. Hamas has to go because they are a government that does not bend the knee to glorious Israel like the Palestinian Authority does. I showed you that fucking leaked document that said there's 3 options. One is wipe all the Palestinians out, kill all the Palestinians, or drive them off their land and then steal it for glorious Israel. Or one of the other options was bring in the corrupt Palestinian Authority, who will then allow fucking settlers to come in. They'll break up fucking Gaza into Bantustans like fucking apartheid's West Bank. And then, of course, they'll hand over all that fucking wonderful property, beachfront property, to Israeli developers and businessmen so they can make money off of it. But they have the same standards and believe in the same things that America believes in. That America believes in. Now, they'll tell you that's freedom and democracy and brotherly love and inclusion and all of those fucking things, but it's not. And you know it's not. And Glenn Beck knows it's not. He's a liar. He's a guy who was filmed doing a shoot for a cover where he's crying, his fake crying. And they put Bengay on his fucking, under his eyes, so his eyes would water. He learned that trick in television when he would weep, because weeping made him money. Now he wants to stand with glorious Israel and Bibi Netanyahu, criminal, mass murderer, psychopath, guy who ultimately is responsible for the IDF shelling fucking Israeli homes with tanks and drones and Apache attack helicopters and Hellfire rockets. And these are all, this is not hyperbole, this is not conspiracy theory. This is information coming straight out of fucking Israel. Multiple sources. And Glenn Beck wants to stand with him because they represent the same things we represent. He's right about that. everything for the unregulated free markets. God bless the unregulated free markets. The unregulated free markets are all that's important. The unregulated free markets are democracy. The unregulated free markets are America. The unregulated free markets are your God, whether you know it or not. National borders hinder the unregulated free markets, so national borders have to go. Social programs hinder the unregulated free markets, so social programs must go. Consumer protection hinders the unregulated free markets, so consumer protections must go. Antitrust laws hinder the unregulated free markets, so antitrust laws must go. Civil liberties hinder the unregulated free markets, so civil liberties must go. Educated people hinder the unregulated free markets, so educated public must go. Minimum wage laws hinder the unregulated free markets, so minimum wage laws must go. Nationalized central banks hinder the unregulated free markets, so nationalized central banks must go. Your primitive constitution hinders the unregulated free markets, so your primitive constitution must go. Got it? Good. Now sacrifice your kids' future to the unregulated free market. Sacrifice your retirement. Sacrifice your earnings, your health, and your common sense. Sacrifice your quality of life, your freedoms, and your paycheck. Sacrifice critical thinking, logic, and even reason. Sacrifice it all for our glorious unregulated free markets. You will serve the unregulated free markets just like you have been. I wrote that in 2010, and I'm damn proud of it. That, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is the system that we share, the ideology we share with people like Bibi Netanyahu and the Likudniks. In Israel. That, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is why people even like Tucker Carlson and all these folks will say to you, Scott, or say to you, whatever your name is, will say to you, Scott, you say you're on the left and you're a Democrat, but man, the Democrats, they don't seem like they used to. They don't stand for the same things they used to. What's going on? You guys are like fascists now. First of all, I'm not a Democrat. I gave up on them in 2000. Second of all, they aren't the same. You are absolutely right. Because Hillary and Bill Clinton created something called the Democratic Leadership Council and the Blue Dog Dems. And the Scoop Jackson Dems won the day. The fascist, fake fucking left, centrist, neoliberal, glorifying free market fucking Dems won the day. And now it's all corporatism. It's all corporatism. All of it's corporatism. All of it is in worship of the unregulated free markets. Big business rules. And everything that I've talked about in this video today, you can tie into that same fucking problem. That same fucking core ideology that we share with our friends over in Israel. Fuck the goddamn Palestinians. Wipe them out. If they don't leave their fucking land and go live in a fucking tent in the Sinai Peninsula in the fucking desert, then that means they're terrorists and we should blow them up. Kill them all. Why? Because the IDF killed a bunch of fucking people, of their own people, on October 7th. But don't look too deep into it. Otherwise, you're in league with the terrorists. Why? Because our friends in Israel, and of course, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Goldman Sachs, and all these corporations and all these big businesses and all these financial institutions and Wall Street houses, they have money to make in fucking Gaza. And making money right now is difficult. Across the board. They need some kind of new infusion. So this is as good a time as any. It won't be much, but it'll be some. After all, there is liquid natural gas off the fucking coast of Gaza now, isn't it? Yeah, Mr. Beck. We share the same fucking ideology. I shouldn't say we. I should say you, sir, share the same fucking ideology. You worship mammon. You do. You might as well face it. You might as well face it. Mammon is your God. And if you don't know who Mammon was, Mammon isn't money. I'm not saying you worship money. I'm saying you worship the son of the fucking devil, who represents the accumulation of obscene wealth and power. That is Mammon. And that is your God. When you talk about Zionism not being fucking Judaism, and people should not interchange the fucking two. That's true. Judaism is not fucking Zionism. And in fact, people who are really adherents to that religion are opposed to Zionism, opposed to what's going on. Those are people who get beat up on the streets in fucking Israel by the police. Those are people who get attacked. People like, I don't know, Norman Finkelstein, who get attacked over here for opposing Zionism. They are not Mammon worshippers. Zionists are. They are not fucking Jews. They do not follow Judaism. They worship Mammon, like so many in this country do. And I think that you will find much of what I talked about today ties into that, with the exception of the blood tribe. It's so fucking stupid, so fake, so obvious, so fucking obvious. Put a cowboy hat on him. Okay, someone costume. They got a fucking costume van with all kinds of fucking different things that white rednecks might wear. What can we have him doing for this fucking B-roll footage? I don't know. Can he shoot something? No, we don't need a gun. What else can he do? He could be building a house. He could be a carpenter. No, we don't want to. I got a fishing rod from a shoot I did last month. Get on Google and find us a lake. So stupid. Anyway, that's today's news. Again, I want to thank the person who zapped me those two links to those two things. I appreciate it. I hope you guys got something out of this today. Get out there. Today's Friday. It's the 3rd. It's a new day. It's a new weekend. Get out there and be somebody. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.